They called themselves refined, pure, guardians of morality. Ladies of elegance draped in lace and silk, their hair coiled and powdered, their hands soft and white. But behind locked doors, behind polished halls and parasols, white women in slavery carried nasty secrets. Secrets they hid from the world, and from the very black men they tormented. Secrets so filthy, so disturbing, so unspeakable, they were buried for centuries. Listen carefully. Hear the soundscape of their world. Church bells fading into muffled screams, heavy breathing in the dark, then silence. The clatter of chains in distant quarters, footsteps on polished floors, echoing through empty hallways. It is a world of appearances, masking the unimaginable. And this is not the history of gentle ladies sipping tea. This is the disturbing reality of unspeakable acts, cruelty hidden in plain sight, and the pain buried deep within the silence of black men. What if the very women history praised as saints were the ones keeping filthy lies? What if their smiles, their soft voices, their manners were the mask for obsession, coercion, and cruelty? The story begins in the 1700s and stretches into the 1800s, across the American South, through Caribbean plantations and beyond. Vast estates rose under the sun, columns gleaming, balconies stretching wide, fields alive with labor and sweat. The outward image was of refinement and propriety, but beneath the surface was a theater of cruelty, a stage where power, obsession, and secrecy collided. White women, long portrayed as innocent victims of patriarchal control, in reality often held direct authority over enslaved people. They supervised punishment, dictated labor, and enforced compliance. And in that power, some unleashed behaviors so nasty, so disturbing, that history chose silence over truth. Enslaved black men bore the brunt of this hidden cruelty, reduced to objects, their bodies and dignity weaponized in ways that were unspeakable even to their fellow captives. On plantations, the law and society sided with whiteness. Black men had no recourse, no protection, no voice. Any hint of defiance, any suspicion of disobedience could bring whipping, imprisonment, or death. Yet even under this terror, the most vile acts occurred not in public, but behind locked doors, in rooms that no ledger, no account, no polite record would ever admit existed. Some white women devised secret punishments meant to degrade, humiliate, and target masculinity. The objective was not labor, not correction, but psychological domination. Historical whispers suggest coercion into unspeakable acts, where compliance was enforced under threat of violence or execution. Children born from these encounters were hidden, passed off as another man's, erased from records, their existence buried under layers of filthy lies. And if discovery threatened their image, accusations of assault could be fabricated to protect the lady's honor, leaving the men powerless, vulnerable to extreme punishment, or even lynching. These were not casual misdeeds. They were calculated, cruel, and designed to preserve a facade while secretly exploiting humanity. The duality was horrifying. Outward virtue, inward depravity. Whispers and rumors, carefully suppressed, hint at secret pregnancies, hidden journals, and illegitimate children whose very existence challenged the myth of refinement. Black men lived with terror each day, each hour, each moment. Any glance too long, any hesitation could bring lashes or worse. Yet silence was their only shield. They could tell no one, not fellow enslaved people, not family, not outsiders. Heartbreak was constant. Fathers stripped of sons, husbands denied wives, sons denied fathers. Every act of cruelty left scars that stretched beyond the plantation, echoing into generations. The legacy of trauma is etched in whispers, in DNA, in family stories carried quietly across time. Even after emancipation, the shadow of these dirty secrets persisted. Black men lived under suspicion, their stories doubted, their suffering minimized. The filth of these hidden acts could not be cleansed by freedom, for the shame and pain had been ingrained, passed down like an invisible chain. And yet some truth survived. Slave narratives, abolitionist writings, and oral histories preserve glimpses of what happened. Plantation records, hidden diaries, Letters hint at the nastiest secrets. Modern historians, sifting through fragments, DNA evidence, and court cases, have begun to reconstruct the hidden realities. The children, the coercion, the obsessions, the filthy lies that white women never wanted the world to see. And when the veil lifted, society recoiled. Shock, denial, disbelief, because the truth was nastier than anyone could have imagined. For the enslaved men caught in this web, the suffering was relentless. The terror was constant. Every day, every night, they lived under the weight of domination so vile it is almost impossible to describe. Their bodies, their minds, their very spirits were property to be controlled, broken, manipulated, whipped for imagined slights, coerced into humiliating acts, threatened with death if they resisted. And yet, compliance offered no relief, only temporary reprieve from the next form of psychological or physical torment. The heartbreak was unimaginable. Fathers watched helplessly as sons were torn away, wives vanished into distant quarters, and brothers punished for crimes they did not commit. Black men bore these burdens in silence, the very silence demanded by the cruelty of white women who hid behind virtue while committing acts of unspeakable nastiness. The legacy of these hidden horrors did not end with the fall of the plantation system. It passed like poison through generations, whispered tales of grandfathers used in secret, of men shamed for crimes they never committed, of families haunted by histories they could not speak aloud. Yet even in this darkness, fragments of resistance flickered. Some left subtle marks, a broken object, a song coded with secret meaning, a quiet defiance in the fields. But these acts, though brave, could not erase the trauma. The psychological scars were deep, embedding themselves into the collective memory of Black culture, shaping stories, behaviors, and the unspoken rules of survival for generations to come. Imagine living a life where your body was not yours, where your dignity was a weapon turned against you, and where your very existence was manipulated to satisfy hidden desires. The exposure of these secrets came slowly, painfully. Slave narratives recorded moments of horror, accounts of white women exploiting enslaved men in secret rooms, coercing them into acts that society refused to acknowledge. Plantation letters, diaries, and court records hint at scandalous encounters, illegitimate children, and acts so filthy they were meticulously concealed. Oral histories passed down within Black families preserve fragments of truth, whispered to survive the danger of speaking too loudly. Modern historians, with the tools of DNA testing and archival research, have begun piecing together the puzzle. Hidden bloodlines, long denied, tell the story of secrets too nasty for polite society to admit. The cultural reaction was, predictably, a mixture of denial and shock. White families struggled to reconcile the image of the virtuous mistress with evidence of cruelty and obsession. Some retreated into silence, some into outright denial, and some attempted to rewrite family histories to erase uncomfortable truths. Black descendants experienced a painful validation, confirmation of what had long been whispered in fear and shame. Yet the confirmation reopened wounds that generations had tried to forget. Historians and academics faced resistance when presenting evidence that white women, too, were perpetrators of slavery's most disturbing acts. The mainstream culture, from films to textbooks, rarely acknowledges these hidden truths, sanitizing history to preserve myths of refinement, innocence, and female virtue. The psychological and social interpretations are as disturbing as the acts themselves. Some argue that white women, limited by patriarchal systems, sought domination over those they could control. Enslaved men, turning powerlessness into obsession. Fetishization and fear intertwined, creating a toxic mix of lust, control, and sadistic cruelty. Acts were less about desire and more about assertion of superiority, the thrill of committing forbidden acts behind locked doors, knowing the law and society would protect them. These were architects of filthy lies, wielding authority with deadly precision and shaping generations through silence, coercion, and terror. Finally, we return to the haunting imagery that lingers in the mind. White dresses brushing across polished floors, the soft rustle of lace in candlelight, rooms locked and emptied of witnesses, secrets buried under decades of polite society's lies. The men who suffered were silenced, their dignity stolen, their families fractured, their lives erased from the narratives of history. Yet the echoes remain, in bloodlines, in whispered stories, in the trauma passed down from one generation to the next. History may call these women ladies, may paint them as delicate, innocent, victims of a male-dominated world. But the truth revealed in letters, DNA, oral histories, and the whispered legacies of Black men tells another story, a story of nasty secrets that broke hearts, shattered families, and twisted history into filthy lies. And the world confronted with these truths cannot unhear them, cannot unsee the damage, cannot ignore the horror. So the next time you see the image of a Southern belle, smiling, elegant, pristine, ask yourself, what was she hiding behind those polished smiles? What filthy secrets lay behind the locked doors of the mansion? And what pain did she leave in the lives of Black men who could never speak, whose silence was the only shield against death? History's dirtiest truths always find a way to surface. And these nasty secrets, hidden for centuries, still echo, still haunt, and still break your heart.